So this is one of the few moments that we see Sophie alone, certainly in the hotel bedroom space. And it was a scene I actually ended up fighting to keep in the edit. It's a sequence that doesn't hold... it's easy to argue this is a scene that doesn't hold a lot of purpose, though for me it does. There are many details in this that are accumulations of moments throughout the course of the film. It was actually one of the few scenes that we got to set and hadn't come up with a concrete plan of how to shoot. And that was terrifying. But Greg and I had such a strong framework for how we were shooting the rest of the film. We were able to set this up, and it ends up playing from the corner of the room in almost a single shot that was so satisfyingly well executed. I think it's one of both of our favorite scenes in the film, and Frankie just seamlessly moves through these motions in a way that's really lovely. It was also such hard work to get that room to look so messy. And much to the upset of our production designer and costume designers, I was just flinging things all over the room.
This is our
That
room.
cut from the Twizzler,
This is Dad's tiny wing.
the cut from the cocktail stirrer to the screen is one of our editor's favorite cuts. That was his cut on the kind of motion of it. And then we have this scene, which is definitely one of the best executed moments from the script that specifically captures exactly the intention of what was on the page, which is this live feed of the DV camera that Sophie is recording around the room. And the original intention hadn't been that there is a mirror quite there, and it's just one of the most satisfying sequences in the film because you have so many images on screen at once. You have the image in the camcorder window that you can see. You can see Frankie, you can see Paul, you can see Paul's reflection on the concave CRT television. There's just so much happening and so many levels of perspective and reflection and refraction. So there's a stack of books here which reflect Callum's interests, which represent Callum bringing many books on holiday that he's unlikely to read, but perhaps begin, which I think is somewhat reflective of how he feels professionally and in the rest of his life, unable to quite see through things that he begins. And so these reflect Tai Chi and meditation and these various activities that he's pursuing to retain some sense of inner calm. And there's also a nod to Margaret Tate, who's a Scottish filmmaker, worked independently for many years, making her own work in Orkney, where she's from, and in Edinburgh, where her studio was. She was the first woman to make a feature film in Scotland in 1992 called Blue Black Permanent that has a lot in common with this film, or rather, my film has a lot in common with hers in terms of being about memory and family and the unknowable nature of our parents. The intention with much of the DV footage is that it's Callum's capturing of Sophie, and it felt important to me that Callum not really be in the DV footage directly very often. And this is one of the few times that he is, and it was written into the script, and I gave Paul the direction to try to avoid the lens of the camera wherever he could, which is why he does that kind of goofy dance and ducks behind the curtain. And then he pulls the plug, and the original intention had just been that at this point in time you would see their feet and maybe their hands on the edge of frame. But as it happened, the layout of the room didn't allow for that, and instead it allowed for something so much better, which Greg and Balur, our production designer, found in allowing this reflection to play out. And Frankie comes up with this line here: I'm just going to record you in my mind camera. I also love that she put that camera down
Loads
in
of
frame. That was a gift,
You remembered it was not very
a very well-placed gift.
And
And so that line that she says she actually came up with during the
So
rehearsal
angry,
process.
should
We
we
were
have a
messing
radio?
around down by the
That
pool
drive
table
was
at the
on
hotel
social
one
media
day,
or
and
something to buy.
perhaps talking through this scene or talking tangentially about the role of the camera in this film, and
What did
and
you
she said that, and I thought it was gold, and I immediately wrote it
chose
into the
iPhone.
script.
red.
But I just love the way that the focus shifts in this scene.
Good choice.
Thank you.
It's really satisfying when you do execute something close to perfectly. It happens so rarely. And it's hard for me to watch this without immediately hearing that snare drum. Or rather the hi-hat come in at the beginning of Tender. And then we're off to that sequence that follows.
That was amazing.